Good evening, Shockers. Welcome to tonight's Table Talk, Shocker Family Table Talk. Tonight's theme is all about money. And so, your Shocker finances. And so, we're excited to bring this topic to you. This is often probably one of the most popular viewed shows because as a parent, you want to know what's how do we get in and pay bills. Also, just raising kids is stressful and hard enough, but when we send them off to college and we throw in finances, do our kids know about financial planning, being able to stick with it, helping them to reduce anxiety and stress about financial responsibility. Hopefully today is going to answer a lot of those questions and give you resources so that by the time your shockers ready to join us here at Wichita State, they'll be ready to go. And so I am Alicia Newell. I serve as the Assistant Vice President for Student Affairs. I've been with the university for 17 years, absolutely love what I do. I am a first generation college student, a proud alum of the university. And so my hope is that we're able to help ease not only your students' transition to college, but also yours in that process. Because as a parent myself, it's overwhelming. And so just being able to help guide you through that process every step of the way and knowing that we're here, answering questions. And so we're going to go around and introduce ourselves. And then at any time throughout the presentation, I just want to remind you we have a lovely comment box there. Feel free to jot in any questions you may have, and we will get to them as they come. So turn it over to Kim and then Courtney.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kim Sandlin. I serve as the Director of Student Success, and I'm excited to be back here. I've missed a couple of these because of a family thing and a vacation thing, and so I'm glad to be back with everyone tonight. And while the topic of money is not always fun, tends to be pretty lively with Q&A. So Alicia and I and Courtney are glad that you are all here tonight. I too am an alum of the university and have worked here for 24 years, long time in a number of capacities, and had a great time. First generation student, super involved on campus, did everything but live on campus. So I did not have that. If I had it over to do again, or if I could do it over again, that's one thing I would change. I would definitely have that living on campus experience. So that's what I would share with you at this point. But you all are not here to talk to Alicia and I. You are here to learn about money. So I'm going to throw it over to Courtney for his introduction and to get us started.
Perfect. Good evening, Alicia. Good evening, Kim. I'm glad to be here with you both, and everyone who is joining in on the show and who will watch it later. My name is Courtney Lockhart. I am the Assistant Director of Student Services and Outreach in the Office of Financial Aid. We recently did a name change overall, so I guess I would now be named Manager of Financial Aid. But that's neither here nor there. I'm here to assist you with any questions that you may have regarding to financial aid, regarding to funding your education. Right now, I guess let me step back. I've been at the university for 19 years. Since the fall of 2003, I entered into the university and I've been trucking along ever since. I'm an alum. Of course, I've graduated a few times. I'm working on another one. And then we'll see where we go from there. But really, our push right now when it comes to financial aid is getting the free application for federal student aid completed. It's surprising that some families still don't know that they can fill out the FAFSA. That's the acronym for it, FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. Some families are unaware that they can fill out the FAFSA. Some families, they've completed it and don't know the next steps to take, and they're just kind of hanging in the balance, waiting. for some additional information. And so I'm here to answer any of those questions for those of you that have filled out the FAFSA, for those of you that want to know what the FAFSA is and where do you go to complete it, and then maybe some other timeline and deadline concerns that you may have as we approach the fall semester here in August, which is really just around the corner. Hard to believe. Summer really swept by us, and now the fall is upon us. And so I'm glad to be here tonight. I'm glad to answer any questions that you may have. So thank you, Alicia. Thank you, Kim, for this opportunity.
The questions that typically arise is how will students know that they have been awarded financial aid? And is there anything they need to do to accept it?
Yes. So once a student is admitted to the university, they get a WSU ID, which is a combination of letters and numbers. And then they also get their own email account. They get access to a profile or a platform, which is the My WSU student platform. They get access to in this platform once they sign in using their My WSU ID as well as a password that they've created. Once they sign into that platform, under the My Finances tab, there is a financial aid dashboard. And so that's something that's newly created for students and families to be able to go access and see what types of financial aid offers have been made, and even to act upon those various types of financial aid offers that have been made.
Yeah, and sometimes we hear from parents that there's a little red flag that's kind of up in their students portal, and they have no idea what that means. Can you talk a little bit what that red flag is?
Yes. So that would be under unsatisfied requirements. So what that means is that we received a document, and either it may be incomplete or there may be additional documents that we may be yet awaiting to receive. Oftentimes when we receive a FAFSA, there are certain points that the federal government has to check just to ensure that everything on the FAFSA has been entered correctly, that the income information is correct, the household size, there's various things, citizenship status, all of those things are verified once the FAFSA has been submitted. And really, the federal government will notify our office once there are some markers that we'll need to verify. And so there will be a red flag, if you will, or an unsatisfied requirement on the student's account, which will let them know that we need some additional information. Whether that's a worksheet that we need for them to submit, we would put that in their student dashboard or their financial aid dashboard, or whether that they need to bring in an ID to us. A lot of times right now we are requesting for students to submit their final high school transcript. And so oftentimes that is the only remaining unsatisfied requirement that is in their student portal, that is in their financial aid dashboard, is just that high school transcript. And that is for the full 8 semesters of high school that has their graduation date actually on the transcript. Once they send that into our undergraduate admissions office, they enter it into the system, and then that automatically clears through our system. But that is a process that needs to be done first.
There we go. I know that often there's a lot of families who think that they won't qualify for any grants or aid, and so they simply don't apply. And so what are your thoughts, and is there any benefit or contrary of individuals filing the FAFSA as it relates to scholarships for the university? And then if you can jump in and talk a little bit about scholarship universe.
Okay. So I'll give you a warning. I am not the expert on Scholarship Universe. We have an assistant director of scholarships who is the professional, but I do stand in proxy for her on this evening, so I will be glad to answer any questions that may arise. I would definitely encourage any families who are thinking, hey, we won't qualify for anything, any grants, any scholarships, anything. Um, I would encourage them to go ahead and submit the FAFSA. If they have questions as they're completing it, we would be more than glad to help them through that process just to get the FAFSA in. By us receiving the FAFSA, it will allow us to determine what types and amounts of financial aid that a student may be eligible to receive. And so oftentimes families think, oh, I made an extra 10,000, or something like that. And so I know that's not going to qualify us for anything. And they have a household of like 5 children or something like that. And oftentimes they end up being eligible for the federal Pell Grant, which is the grant that students most times are looking to receive. That is oftentimes when people speak of financial aid, they're actually talking about the Pell Grant. And, they just don't know it. But I definitely encourage families, go ahead and complete the FAFSA, get that submitted. Although we don't need a FAFSA to determine your eligibility for a scholarship, I would say still complete the FAFSA, get that submitted, because that's going to allow us to determine whether or not you're eligible for any state or federal aid. We receive very limited portions from the federal and state governments for that aid, for those grants. And so I would say, go ahead and get that in. All that money, it has to be awarded to students, and we're gonna offer it to students that have met that deadline of completing the FAFSA. Now, of course, we say we would like to have that in by December 1. We are well past that date now. But any excess aid that is available, any excess grant aid that is available, we're still offering that to students that may, that may meet the criteria and have submitted their FAFSAs into us. And if not this year, we have another FAFSA that becomes available October 1 of 2022. So you go ahead and get a jump start on the next year. And of course, we'll help you with that as well. That's always a big promo item for us. October 1 of 2022, the FAFSA for 2023, 2024 becomes available. And of course, if you qualify for the Pell Grant, you also qualify for another grant. And so potentially up to $2,000 in extra grant. And so we definitely don't want you to miss out on those funds. So again, if you didn't qualify for the extra grants this year, still complete the FAFSA. That's going to be additional money that you can be considered for that'll help fund your education. Now to move on to the second part, Scholarship Universe. This is your one-stop shop for scholarship opportunities. For those of you that are entering into the campus for your freshman year next month, many of you have already applied for all of the scholarships that may be available. There are still scholarships that we are posting daily, weekly, from outside sources. All of those are vetted. And then they're placed into Scholarship Universe. So all of those, we would encourage you to go and apply. Once you set up your profile in Scholarship Universe, it does the work for you. So there's no middleman. Scholarship Universe is going to match scholarships to you based upon the criteria that you enter into your profile. It's going to be based upon your major. Sometimes there are gender specific scholarships, maybe some scholarships based upon your race, your heritage. So there are some awesome scholarship opportunities that are available to our students in Scholarship Universe.
And I just want to kind of reiterate, Courtney, because as a parent, sending your student away to college, for many who are with us this evening, they're sending their student away for the first time. And so, and not understanding that we drop our students off in August, September, October, we're starting already for that next academic year. And so it's not just making sure that we are, and often a lot of our scholarships are available for application for the next academic year around that same time, right. And financial aid. And so it's making sure that you apply for these early, because the early bird gets the worm, right? And so if we wait till the last minute, we may not be able to have maybe some of the same opportunities if we would have done it early on. And so just if there's anything tonight, just remember October 1 is a very important date of being able to encourage your students not only to redo financial aid or reapply for aid, to make sure that they are applying for scholarships for that next academic year. In addition, if anyone can put in the chat what else they should be doing in this time. If you met me at orientation, I'm going to wait. I'm going to pause. What should your student be doing in October? Anybody? All right, I'll throw it out there. Academic advising. They should be meeting with their advisor as well. And so October is a really critical month. And so we have a couple questions, Courtney, that are in the chat that I want to kind of get started on. And so Tim Woodard is looking at Scholarship Universe, and it states that there is one scholarship in review. Do you know when they would be notified either way?
Okay. So that would depend on whether or not that's an academic scholarship or that's an outside scholarship. That's going to depend. Each department still controls, monitors, governs their own scholarships that they're offering to students for the upcoming year. And so if it's an academic scholarship, then that department, basically based upon the major that you're going into, whether that's engineering, whether that's liberal arts and sciences, whatever major you may be going into, business, something like that, that they have an individual who oversees the scholarships there. If it's an outside scholarship, that's just going to be based upon the individual that's offering that scholarship. So that's not always made known to us. I would definitely encourage you to continue to monitor that. You can always send an email into our email account, finaid@wichita.edu. You can send an email there and inquire about your scholarship. I would also check and see if there are any details in the scholarship that you applied for. Maybe oftentimes they have an individual or a contact person or a program chair or something like that you can contact. I would encourage you to look for their information as well. So that way you can be informed on both sides.
Perfect. And so bill time, we're going to get over there in a second. But if a student received a scholarship, will that be reflected in their bill now? When will scholarships be added to student fee bills? Do you know that?
Okay, so that is kind of a twofold question. So that would depend on what type of scholarship it was. If it's an outside scholarship, like from a church, a private charity organization, or something like that, those can either be written to the student or written to the university, or both. If they're sent to the university, then they have to come to our office. We will then enter it into the system and send it to the billing office, and they will get it added to the student's account 10 days before classes start. Okay, so that is the disbursement date. So we don't say, maybe the 12th or the 18th or something like that, but 10 days before your classes start, we will actually disperse all of your financial aid. That's scholarships, federal aid, the like. And then that following week is when refunds will begin. If you're anticipating a refund based upon any excess financial aid, you will receive, hopefully you've set up direct deposit. I'm sure that'll be touched on tonight. But I would definitely encourage you, if you are anticipating any type of refund, to go ahead and set up direct deposit. That is the fastest way for you to receive your refund in time for you to purchase any additional materials that you may need for class or something like that. Or if not, then paper checks will be written and issued the very next day. Of course, paper checks take about 7 days for you to receive your refund in. So classes could start potentially by the time you get your paper check refund. But definitely you'll have a direct deposit, assuming that all your unsatisfied requirements are met in the financial aid office and we're able to disperse your financial aid. Which I would encourage you to talk with us about if that's not the case. But assuming all things are satisfied and your financial aid is ready to go, then direct deposits will begin on the 17th. And then paper checks will be issued on the 18th of August.
And typically what we've seen is a lot of refunds that are submitted. Students will typically get them like 1 to 2 weeks earlier based on direct deposit. And so if your student is needing some of that refund money in order to purchase their books or supplies, definitely make sure that direct deposit is set up. Clint, when we're looking right now at student fee bills, what you're currently seeing in your students' accounts is for this fall semester only. Students have yet to register for spring semester, and so we just break this up by term. And so right now, what is available in there is just fall only bills. Kimberly, we're excited that you have discovered Scholarship Universe. It's always exciting just to kind of see, parents who have other students already at the university and are just now being made aware of some of these resources. And so, if you're not already, I'm just going to put a plug in for our social media and our parent family newsletter. If you are not a part of that, go to our website, wichita.edu/family, and you can sign up to receive our parent family newsletter, where we will send you all of this information and reminders of when important deadlines are happening, things that your students should be doing, and just action items, because it's a lot. This is a lot of information to take in. And by the time, August rolls around, we may forget some of it, and it's okay. But that's why Courtney and I and Kim, we're all here to help through the process. And so with outside scholarships, Courtney, that's requiring them to get something started for students is to prove that students are enrolled, that they can't get that information until the first day of school. That's not true. If your student is registered for classes already, they should be able to go into their MyWSU portal and print out a copy of their schedule. That schedule is going to be proof that they are enrolled with the university. One thing, Team Woodard, that you may want to ask is, does this need to be verified by the university? Does it have to be notarized? If that's the case, they will need to request that through the registrar's office here with the university. And so, but you should be able to go ahead and provide that information. And then as soon as those checks come in, like Courtney said, they will be sent to accounts receivable to be put on their bill. And that should take place 10 days roughly prior to classes starting. Am I right, Courtney?
That's right.
Okay. All right.
Also with that, Alicia, so let's say if they need something official, even from our office, just to state what financial aid they may have received. I know with some of the tribes, they have a form that they may need us to complete that says, they've received this much aid, because they want to see how much additional aid that they want to offer the students. We have a form in our office. It's a student information release form. They can come to our office and they can complete one of those and submit it. That does take about 3 to 5 days for us to complete. In August, all of the deadlines and timelines are extended just because of the time of year that it is. And so that could take a week or more for that to be complete, but that is something that we could do for them as well if they needed something official from our office.
Perfect. And I'm just going to throw out there, our Office of Financial Aid really, in my opinion, rolls out the red carpet to our students. If you have any questions, concerns regarding scholarships, financial aid, in the midst of COVID, we had a lot of families whose household income changed drastically. Of being able to work with our counselors and financial aid, get that information updated, and see if it changes any of the support that we can offer our students. And so if ever in doubt, if you go to wichita.edu /financial aid, there is a link on their website that will allow you to schedule a meeting directly with a financial aid counselor. That could be by phone, that could be in person, that can be via Zoom. And so if you need a virtual appointment with them, I'm constantly doing this with Courtney, and he's probably tired of seeing my face. I'll have a student or a family in my office, and I am hitting him up online, and Courtney's automatically in my office, and he's pulling up the information and talking through that with us so that we can see the student screen. And so it's just, they do an amazing job. So whenever in doubt, there's never a question that is, just, oh, I don't want to ask it. They've probably heard it 100 times and they have an answer. If not, they will find one for you. And so please utilize them. They are an amazing resource and advocate for our students on campus. And we just appreciate them. There's no amount of appreciation I can say. We love y'all.
Alicia, in order for them to get directly to the appointment screen, if you wouldn't mind putting this one up on the screen as well. So wichita.edu/FINAIDAPPT. So that's FinAid appointment. And that's how they can get directly to the appointment screen, which will take them off-site to Calendly. It is within Calendly that they'll be able to set up an appointment to meet with any of our advisors, as Alicia had mentioned, whether that's virtual, on phone, even walking in person. And we've just made an update today to where our office is located. Even though that's out there on the web already, we put it there in Calendly, just as an extra convenience for our family. So you'll be able to find us.
So other questions, we have a student who's trying to, since June, to get their transcript sent from admissions to financial aid so a loan can be had. They were told that it would take anywhere from 1 to 2 business days. Calling, okay, Susie. So Courtney, as soon as a transcript is uploaded in the system, that's all we need. They don't have to send it to you guys. And
Correct.
So Susie, my information is going to be up here. I'll have them put it up here. If you could email me your student's name and ID number, I will look into this for you and get back to you with a solution. And so moving into authorized user, what does that mean? All of this good stuff. And so for payment plans, so we're going to go ahead and jump into financial operations and looking at the bill side. Courtney's going to stay with us. If there's questions that you have, continue to put them in the chat box, and we'll get to them after this next session. But moving forward, talking about financial operations and really what does that mean? And as for parents, it's how do we view our students' bill? And so we're going to pull up a presentation here and go to the first slide, which is all about what do I need to know? And so in your student's account, everything you need to know is at your fingertips. There is no, I don't get it. And so when they log into wichita.edu and go to my WSU and log in.
Hey, Alicia. This is their portal. So it's mywsu.wichita.edu.
Yes.
So this is not, you're welcome. It's fine.
This is outside.
This is the portal, not the website. So this is, again, for those of you who have been to orientation, you've heard this. For those of you who are coming, you will hear this. This is basically where everything is located in the portal that a student needs to sign into, provide some kind of credential, password ID, or ID password combo to get into, and certainly financial aid information is part of that. So sorry, I just wanted to clarify that. Alicia, I'll let you go.
I appreciate it. And so once they're in their portal, this right here where it says My Finances, this is the button that you're going to click on. Once you click on My Finances, this green box here, I'm like the money box. Everything you need is in this green box. And so when you click into that, if we go to the next slide, it's going to pull up everything you have. So I asked a student to let me view theirs. And in here, you're going to see a place where you can sign up to be an authorized user. Your student's going to have to add you as an authorized user. As an authorized user, you are able to go in and view the bill and also make payments. And so if you do not have permission, you will not be able to access this. And so it's really critical as step one that your students add you as an authorized user. From there, you'll be able to click where it says balance, and that's where you'll see that a breakdown of the bill. The bill is going to say this much is applied for tuition, this much is applied for housing, and you'll be able to go in and set up a payment plan. So a question that had came in that I want to go ahead and address is for the payment plans, they are set up as 3-month payment plans. And so that's the only option. If you need to take longer, that's understandable. Some do. Just make sure that just know that your student will not be able to register for class if their bill exceeds $2,000. A financial hold will be put on their account, which will restrict them from registering for classes. And so as long as that fee is below $2,000, they'll be eligible to register for classes.
I think the question, it was, is it 3 payments? Yes, it is, instead of 5, because there's 5 months in a semester. When you break it down, we've got 2 weeks in August. We got maybe a week of classes and a week of finals in December. So if you shave off those 2 weeks, we're really looking at about 3 months. When we give students just kind of I'm a calendar person and a visual person, and I like to see that broken down because for whatever reason, it makes more sense to me that way. So we provide, just to give you an idea, we can provide a schedule for your student of the 16 weeks of the semester, and we fit it on one side of one page. There's not that much time given in the semester. So I think that's why there's just those 3 payments, because they drop off December and they drop off August, just because there's really not that much time. And the time on both ends of those semesters are very chaotic times, both with your students and with you all worrying about how they're doing and how they're starting and then how they are ending. So that's why that 3 payment plan is there. Now, saying that, also knowing, Alicia had mentioned how great financial aid is. I retweet, ditto, all of that, cosign, whatever on that comment. I can also say the same thing is true with our financial ops folks. They will bend over backwards to work with students and families to, try to help them through this. This is a significant amount of money that you all and your students are paying. And so I know that they've worked with students in the past who maybe have a late fee, or maybe they're late on their, bill or their payment. And as long as your student is communicating with them, as long as you are showing effort, they are going to do everything that they can to work with you. So if that's something that you have to do, I would encourage you to reach out to financial operations. You can either email Alicia or you can email me, and we can get you in contact with a specific person in there to visit with you if there are any exceptions that they can make to that. So sorry for the long-winded kind of tangent there, but do just kind of want to put in your brains, how short we're talking. We're not talking 5 months, we're talking 16 weeks for each semester.
Yep. And so in this section of your students portal, number 1 would be setting up, obviously, the authorized user. Again, clicking in here and looking at the bill, and bills have already, last week, bills were applied to students' accounts. And so you should see in there now what their tuition and fees are. And then if your student is living in housing, their housing bill has also been applied to their account. And so you'll see that housing, their payment is broken down into 4 payments. Because most students will stay longer and they move in earlier in August and longer into December. But then the tuition and fee is broken down into 3 payments. And so that's available to look at. If there's scholarships or aid that has been applied to your student's bill, you will see those added in there. And I really encourage families to go in and just continue to check, especially if you have outside scholarships coming in, because like Courtney said, those typically we're getting so many at one time. Those typically are just being put on daily as they come in. And so just making sure you're checking back to see if that's been added to your student's account. The next slide really just kind of talks about our action items and things that you need to do. So take note. 1, set up authorized user in your student's portal. Important because if you don't have access, they might have a bill hanging out there unless they're paying for it. And so making sure that you have access to that. The second part on that same page, that same previous page, you're able to go in there and set up direct deposit. If your student has any returning aid or scholarships, this is where it would be directly deposited into their account. If they don't have a direct deposit set up, that will be a paper check that will be mailed to the address that we have on file for them. And so I can't tell you how many checks are returned because someone has moved. And so really direct deposit is the quickest and best way to go. And the last thing that I wanted to mention is just paying for online fees, paying for the fees online. You can always go directly to the office and make payment in person, but we really encourage individuals to pay their fees online. One, it quickly automatically tracks that in the student's account. But what I've learned is that if you tie your bank account to their account, there is no additional fee that's charged. If you're paying that fee with a credit card, there will be a small fee that will be assessed in addition to the payment that you made. And so that's not really a big surpriser, but I do want to make that available because sometimes, people are like, what's this extra charge? There is a difference. Lastly, there's some important dates that we want you to know. And so on the next screen, we have September 2nd. And so this is the deadline for balance. And so I think someone had asked Shannon can we pay it all at once? Absolutely. You can most definitely pay all at once. If you're not able to, and you're like, man, this needs to be something we need to spread out, as long as you either pay the balance due by September 2nd or set up a payment plan. In that same profile that we last looked at, where you can view the balance, right above is where you can set up a payment plan. Go in there. It's $150 to start a payment plan. And that's the minimum you have to put down. And then they'll break it down by month of how much you would need to pay. And the last thing is the last day for balances to be paid off is September 15th. And so, November 15th. And so if you are wondering what is the last day that I can pay that is September 15th. If you need to extend and go a little bit beyond that, please make sure you just contact our financial operations. They will be more than willing to work with you. And so just make sure that you have those dates jotted down, because a lot of times students forget to share these dates with parents, and then they come back upset because there's a hold on their account and they're not able to register. The last thing is I want to make sure that we give you their contact information. And so if you have any specific questions, I am not the expert for financial operations. Our folks are off at a conference, so Kim and I are kind of just putting in some knowledge to make sure that we give you the information you need. But feel free to contact them directly, either via email or give them a call. You can even check out their website. A tip that's really helpful for me is if you're wondering, how do I go and do a proxy or an authorized user, being able to go to wichita.edu/one-stop and typing that in will give you a screenshot and step-by-step of how to work through each of those. And so that's my secret tip for you all. And we'll jump into questions.
I wanted to jump in here. Sometimes your students may get into a situation where pretty early on in the semester, they are considering making schedule changes. And what I mean by that is withdrawing from a class because maybe they feel like they are in over their head. So in terms of refunds, I'm just kind of looking at my other screen here to make sure that I give you the right date. In order to get a 100% tuition refund for full semester classes, so these are the 16-week classes, the last day to make that change is also September 2nd. That does not give your student much time to decide, I'm going to withdraw from a class and get a 100% refund. After that, you're not going to get that refund. And underscore this, when your student or if your student wants to make changes to their schedule, and we're talking, whatever point in time that is throughout the semester, two places that you need to chat with or have your students talk to. First, advising on what that means. When am I going to pick this class up later? How is that going to, affect my time to degree, that kind of thing. But second, financial aid, because there could be some kind of rule with a scholarship or with, you have to be enrolled in 12 hours is considered full-time for financial aid purposes. And so if you drop below that, what does that mean? How does that impact your financial aid for the semester and for the future? So two very important conversations for your students to have when we're talking about making changes to their class schedule. Another question I saw from Jessica is financial aid applied to tuition, then housing and meals, and then refunds. So yeah, that's usually it's going to cover all the tuition and fees first, then it's going to roll into the housing, and then you're going to get refund. If you're lucky enough to get a refund, you will then receive that refund in final. So you have that correct. And then the question or some of the breakdowns, Sheila had a question, some of the breakdowns on this or the charges that are on the statement. So I'm going to look for, Alicia, if you know these right off the top, I'm going to look for a website that our staff can put on the screen there that will explain these tuition and fees. We have a new fee system, and it's complicated even for us who work here. And it depends on your student's major in the classes, and there's course fees and major fees and all kinds. So I'm going to look for that website to see if we can pop that up here. Alicia, if you want to start kind of working down the list, if you know.
And so essentially, student support fees, mandatory fees, course fees, those are exactly as written. And so essentially student support. And so students are able to utilize counseling services on campus for a charge of $10. They have access to free tutoring. There is a lot of just different resources. Student organizations are student health on campus. And so those fees will go apply to supporting some of those units. And when we're looking at course fees, those are fees that go directly back to the department and academic college. And so typically we'll see course fees come in when it's a lab associated and needing to buy materials for lab, or if there are particularly maybe like an art class, something that's going to have additional need associated with that course. I know for some of the colleges, there is a college fee. That's simply because they need help in maintaining and hiring more faculty, and trying to keep the student to instructor ratio down. In addition, making sure that we're updating technology in some of those programs. And so those fees go directly back to the colleges. And so whenever in doubt, feel free to ask. Housing fee does, you'll also see on the fee bill housing as well as the meal plan that's selected. And so that will be viewable, Sheila, on the fee bill as well. And so all of that will be broken down, and feel free just to click. You cannot mess anything up, I promise. If so, Kim and I would have already done it and we would have fixed it by now. And so
just to add in, if you go to wichita.edu/tuition fees, just tuition fees together, it gives you a breakdown with footnotes, and it will explain what those are. So the campus infrastructure and support fee helps defray costs of the student success remodel in Clinton, which your students are going to be able to take advantage of. My office moves over there, and we centrally are locating about 16, 17 different student services there to help your students. Registration services, communications with students, academic systems, one-stop, all of that support that's built in around your students. Technology fee to offset cost of technology upgrades and replacement, transportation fee to help offset the cost of campus shuttle bus. And so all of these are broken down, A, B, and C in the footnotes of that tuition fees. So that should give you a much better idea. If you're not sure, it's kind of a general name. If it's going to say library fine, you kind of know what that is. Parking ticket, you kind of know what that is, right? But all of these others are kind of mysteries. And so hopefully that tuition and fees site there will help break that down a little bit. So hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, it's always interesting. They're saying like, what is this $50, $75? I was guilty of racking up a hefty fine for parking in the president's parking spot when I was a student because I wanted valet. Alicia could not afford valet. It was like a $1,200 parking fine by the time I ended up graduating. And it was just added on top. And so your students will not get a ticket in the mail. That will be emailed to them and it will be added to their account. And so just making sure, again, that they're checking their fee bills, they're looking at their emails. Also, as scholarships are awarded, if your student has not been selected yet, they're going to be emailed once they are awarded. And so just making sure, again, that they're being timely and checking email and just going in and checking their fee bill online, because all of that information is available to you at your fingertips. Kim, do you want to talk a little bit about Awesome and some of the resources that students can access here within the university?
Yes. To answer Sheila's question about orientation, that orientation fee, we have sent those over to financial operations, accounts receivable. So it's good. I'm glad you mentioned that, Sheila, because it was my understanding that those were already showing up. So I'm hopeful that those are, especially if you came in May. I know those have been uploaded. There's a group of students that are web app kind of, it's just, some technology things that we all face and have to fix, and we're working our way through a list. But if that's not on your fee bill, I will double check that those have been posted. Those, if you have attended already, we have reconciled all those lists and fees and sent them, but there may be a good reason for that on the accounts receivable side. So I'll follow up with Robin and see what might be going on there. And then, yes, awesome. Office of Student Money Management, that is an area within student success. And this is a place where your students might be able to get some help in terms of financial wellness. We give examples at orientation about students who aren't used to operating with a budget. Often your budget that you give them, and how that can sometimes cause stress or, catch them by surprise. We give examples with dining dollars and shocker dollars, and how sometimes students are out of them at midterm because they've bought Starbucks every morning, and then how other students have been very frugal and have used the unlimited swipes on their meal plan, and they have a lot of money available, and they're buying everybody, and their friends. You don't want to buy your, the entire floor that your student is on in the residence hall Starbucks at the end of the semester because your kid didn't, vary their eating plan, right? So we help students kind of think through those, make good questions. We talk a lot with students about wants versus needs. They don't need the Starbucks. They want the Starbucks because you all bought them a really nice Keurig or coffee pot for their residence hall room, right? So they don't need it, but they want it. So we talk about through, decision making that way as well. So many times our students, they've taken their financial literacy component or requirement in high school. And so they know what a budget is. But it's not reality for them until all of a sudden they're out of money and they're like, oh man, my only option is the dining hall, and that's a great option because there's a lot to do there. There's a lot to eat there. And many of you have saw an example of that. So, we can walk through some of those things with your student. We can talk about credit, building credit. Credit is not always bad. But it's important to know how to establish and get good credit established quickly and early, and how that all kind of impacts them later on in life. So we can have those kinds of discussions with them. I will tell you that from experience, not a lot of students choose to come in and talk with us about that. It's very personal. Money sometimes is not fun to talk about, especially when you don't have much. And so we have created a short Blackboard course that is actually available. They'll be available in Blackboard in their organizations section of Blackboard, where they can go through. There's a couple of modules on there. They can get some tips and tricks from us. And then if they have, they can get some of our resources and things. But if they need a follow-up, they can contact our office and we can have someone sit down and meet with them. I also know that sometimes students come to our office and, because, they express to someone on campus, well, I just don't have the money that I need to last me until the end of the month. And the reality is we can't teach them how to budget because they don't have any money to budget with. And sometimes we've got to bring in our partners then from financial aid to talk through what are the options. Have they maxed out financial aid? Have they, taken all the loans that they have been offered? Are there emergency funds? Has their situation changed? So we can really help the student navigate some of those situations as well, with the assistance from folks in financial aid. So it's really a partnership between the two when students come to us and have, money questions and stuff. We have students who help students in student money management, because often it's easier to have that kind of discussion with a peer. So, we make that available. So just wanted to put a plug in there and let you all know that we do offer those services. And we're located in Neff Hall, which is across the courtyard from the RSC. And basically, if you put the RSC in the middle, you got financial aid and financial operations to one side, and then you've got awesome to the other side. So we're pretty centrally located to help them out. So I think that covers it.
Yeah, I would say, one of the biggest things, especially as it comes to care team, when students have financial challenges and they are reported to our team, a lot of them, they've never had to budget before. And so they're coming. And one of the things that I really urge families to look at is, what did your student select for housing? Because a lot of times families have no idea that their student selected a private room. That is the most expensive room. Is that what you need or what you want? Is that something that you can afford? If you're going in and you're seeing, man, like this is really expensive, look and see, call housing and see, are there other options? Because we can definitely look and try to make changes. And like Kim said, and also being able just to make simple budgets. If your student is not planning to work and saying, hey, this is how much you have for the month. We expect you to get a job on campus. We expect you, whatever that looks like, making sure you have those conversations before they leave for college, because setting that expectation is going to help prepare them of this is what are necessities. A lot of times when we talk about financial planning with students, they're not taking in consideration gas money. They're not taking in consideration money to go out and eat with friends. They're not taking in consideration things that are necessities, because that's something that families have always provided. And so if you're able to still do that, that's great. But if it's time for them to kind of learn how to adults and you're expecting them to take on some of that responsibility, that's an expectation that needs to be said prior to them coming to college. I'm going to bring Courtney back on and see if there's any last parting advice or words of wisdoms for our family, or if there's any other questions that have came in. I'm not seeing any. Any last parting words of advice for our families, Courtney?
Yes. So thank you for hanging in there with us this evening. If anything, I would say if you have any questions, there is never a dumb question. I mean, we encounter student after student after student who asks us the exact same question. It doesn't become dumb to us or whatever the case may be, because each new student is having a new experience, and so we expect that. We are here to help you. You are why we do what we do, and so we want to be of assistance to you in any way we can. Ask questions when in doubt, and we're here to help you be successful and throughout your college experience.
We do have a question real quick that did come in. Where can they send 529 payments directly to? Is that financial aid, financial operations, correct?
FinOps, financial
Yep.
operations.
Yep. And so financial operations, that information, we will have it put up on the website. They can send that directly here on campus, and they will get that applied to their account. Kim, any last words of wisdom or advice you want to give out?
I would say, from my experience teaching freshmen in the version of first year seminar that was previous to first year seminar, I've been here a long time, y'all. Your students have no idea how much money that you are paying, or that they're really paying. To them, they've heard, yes, this is an investment. College is expensive. Student loan debt. Like, they hear these things. They do not realize the cost. And if you all have not sat down to have that conversation with them, I encourage you to do that, and not necessarily to stress yourself out as the person paying the bills, or them out as someone who may be contributing and or paying themselves. The last thing we want to do is cause more stress. The one thing we want them to do is understand, eyes wide open, what this investment means. If they understand how much investment you are making in your student, that helps your case when you say, now do you understand why I just want you to take your class once? I want you to pass it the first time. I want you to do well because I want you to get that scholarship again, right? They can't conceptualize it. This is a lot of money we're talking about. And every time I taught that class, we kind of spent a week on this. And every time we went back and I said, how much you think your parents are paying? They were shocked. And they were like, I got to go home and thank mom and dad. And I'm like, yes, you do. So they just, being open and honest with them, and kind of drawing the lines from point to point together, your academic success, your financial success, your student experience, it all goes together into one big thing called college. And I don't think students really have that reality check on, the cost. So that's all that I would say in terms of finances and really kind of being really clear and having a clear picture. The more we go, we're at time. I will go fast here and wrap up. Sorry. The more students we work with throughout the summer, the more worried I get that students have kind of been a little, although they've been plugged in, they've kind of been unplugged from some things in terms of college preparation. And I worry that they're not going to be prepared very well this fall. So if you can help us, we will help you work together to get your students all prepared. So they really do appreciate the financial commitment that you make. They just don't always understand how big that is. So I encourage you to let them know.
Yeah. And, one of the things that I will share is that there's some really phenomenal college financial budget sheets out available online. And so use our good friend Google, check some of them out, have them do a test run of it. It's something that we often do with students in our offices, and just have them see, what does 1 month look like in college? What are some of those hidden fees? Because it makes all the difference. Will you need to work? And if so, how many hours and what is the pay? Because we have students who come and they're like, okay, I'm responsible for housing, and they get a job that is 20 hours a week paying $8 an hour. Baby, that ain't going to cut it. And so, what does that look like, and helping them understand that. I know that the Blackboard course, Kim, is up and available.
We are updating it currently in Blackboard. We're making some adjustments. Blackboard has done a significant kind of revamp. And so we are working with instructional resources to get that all together. Some of those plans that we have in the old course will say, what's your bill for cable television? It's like, okay, we definitely need to change that to streaming services because that is dated. So we're making some of those adjustments. It will be available. Definitely, I can't give you a date by when it'll be available prior to the fall semester, but it will be available because a lot of our first year seminar classes will have their students do those modules. So that'll be in their Blackboard, and they'll be in the My Organizations, not the My Courses, the My Organizations, and there'll be information on how to self-enroll, and then it'll go from there.
Yeah. And the last thing is, that is such a phenomenal resource. A lot of times when students come to me and they're saying, Miss Lisa, I can't afford my books, I don't have money for X, Y, and Z, I send them to Courtney. I also send them to Kim with the expectation that they're going to bring something back to me that shows that they understand what this means moving forward. And so if I'm asking financial aid, hey, we need to help find additional funds for this student, my expectation is they're going to know how to properly manage that. And so requiring them to do some of this stuff and taking responsibility. The last thing that I want to do is say congratulations to Susie Gates. Are you here, Susie? Where are you at, girl? Drop us a like, a comment, a clap. You have won a $300 book scholarship for your student. And so we will be in touch with you to give you more information on how your student can utilize that scholarship here at the Shocker store. And so congratulations again, Susie, on just joining us. Again, if every month when we have these, I think next week we have another one coming. It is my cheat sheet here.
We're going to have a faculty member, and an advisor. Yep.
And so we will be giving giveaways out throughout the rest of the summer. And so feel free to join us. We love engaging with you. And just ultimately our goal is making sure that you feel connected to the university and vice versa, so that when your students are ready to be dropped off, you feel at ease and at peace knowing that individuals on campus care and are ready and on standby to support you and your students. And so thank you so much for joining us this evening. We hope you'll be back next week to talk about your Shocker classes with our faculty and advising. And we'll see you then. Have a great day and go Shocks.
Good night.